Observations on the first skate of training camp.
I thought that was a really good skate. Keeping it in perspective, it's the first day, and you have a lot of excitement, which is a lot of anxiety. And no matter what they have done prior to this, there's nothing like the first day of training camp. You can train all summer long as these guys do. They come in great shape, but with the anxiety and emotions of the first day, and then knowing you absolutely can't take a shortcut anywhere in a physical battle, you're pretty tired at the end of the first day. It's draining. So I thought it was a good first day. It's a first day. We have, everything we do is a process. We'll build and continue to progress and demand more and more each day.
Having established your message through the course of last season to a team that mostly returns intact, how do you now alter it, or not alter it per se, but build on the message and the foundation that you've established as far as what your expectations are from each team, team and each player?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to that question. I guess I know why I have the water here, but it is a build. Everything's a build. It's a process. I mentioned to you, this room a lot last year. The offensive systems of things are a build, and that's going to keep building as these guys gain more experience and confidence and poise. So we're going to keep building. We're going to keep progressing. The message is continue to get better. And this sport is awesome because no matter how good you are, there's ways to get better, and lots of ways to get better. It's not just one thing. There's so many different skills and attributes to each player individually within his position, within the context of our system, within the context of playing as a five-man unit. It's you pull video out. We're going to pull video out even from the practice to give guys focus points. So for us, really, as coaches, it's about continuing to give them focus points, really forward thinking. What they can do more or what they can do better. What maybe they're leaving on the table. We talked a lot last year. There was a lot left on the table. We created a lot of opportunity that either didn't convert to scoring chances, and certainly then it didn't convert to a goal. And so, we're going to go to work in that area specifically, but many others.
With the continuity on the coaching staff and even on what we can determine will be your NHL roster, a lot of guys are back. In what ways can you really take even more advantage of training camp, just in terms of growth opportunities, now that you're not having to teach certain principles that, and I hate to use that word, but certain principles like you had to maybe last year, where you're starting fresh in a lot of ways?
It's a huge advantage. That's a big reason why I enjoy going to Men's World Championships, for example. You have 20 new players, new coaches, and you got about 4 days to integrate and play, a national team that might have been training for a month or two, the way we put our teams together here from North America in the NHL. And, so we have so many returning players that even today's practice, we ran drills without throwing a lot of detail and concepts at them, knowing they've got to get their legs and lungs back to NHL pace. And you hear the older players communicating to the new guys concepts and principles that matter, or objectives within the drill, and that's pretty nice. It's very nice to see as a coach.
I know you come into these camps with an open mind, looking to design how you want your lineups to be and what you want the roster to be. But how do you keep what worked last season out of your mind when you're trying to come up with those choices?
Well, we didn't win enough last season, so it's easy to think that way. No matter what we did, we want to win and win more. And I've said it many times. If there's one thing I'm greedy about, it's wanting to win. I'll take more and more. But so the focus is on that. I mean, it's things might look good, and things might look great, but don't we want better? And I don't want to settle for good or great. I want better and better. So that's easy. So we're always, that's the mindset. That's what I push the coaches every day. There wasn't a drill out there. There was one drill we did last year. My push with the coaches was, we're not doing a drill that we did last year right now. Find a way to do something better. And that was, one area that I'll push them as a staff and push us as a staff, really. So for us, yeah, it's much less of thinking I'm going to find some, beautiful line. And then you got to ask yourself, okay, this is a great line. Do we want to be better? can we find something better? Because you're always missing better if you go into that conservative mode, and we're not there yet to be doing that.
Goalies, as far as the goalies go, do you plan to alternate them? Is there a plan? Is there a number one?
Well, it's all any plan that you have. You plan all summer long, but you don't have information for day 2, and that's injuries and how guys feel, and any other thing that can come up in regards. So there's always a plan. There's always a system. There's always thoughts in mind. There's always lots of discussions behind the scenes. But as far as what our final decision will be, what we'll make of that, if we're talking just game 1 of the regular season, we've got a lot of time before that with a lot of information to be making those decisions. So, I'm not one to speculate ahead. Let's watch and see, and I think we'll all see pretty similar by the time that day comes.
With the seasons that Jack Quinn and Paterka put in last year, now as we move forward and they're in training camp here trying to earn spots, what do they have to show you now to show you they're ready?
I'm not worried about them, nor do I think about showing me they're ready. I want to get them playing their best, and then we can evaluate them and evaluate and see where they're at. So, that has to do with conditioning, that has to do with the psyche, that has to do with putting with players that, again, we can see their potential or their potential best, and those are still reads based on information now. So, the game 1 that they'll play in a preseason game, we'll look at it and say, okay, they've earned the right, Paul, to that we know them, and I watched them enough last year. These are guys that are going to help us. Those 2 players are going to help us. They're going to help our team. They're going to help us practice. Where they're at in that spectrum of helping us right now, that's what we need to evaluate. But I want to accelerate that progress just as I want to with every player. But with them, they're going to help us. More and more as they gain experience. They have what we really need to see. They have an appetite for more. They compete really hard. Their ceiling is really high, and they're accomplishing things day by day. Obviously, the relationships I have with Seth. I mean, we've talked countless times over the last year on these players and the progress of those 2 guys and more. So it's continuing to evaluate that process and knowing we want them to be in our lineup.
Pardon me for this being maybe a bit long, but I'm known for that. But
No apologies needed in here, John.
you've mentioned getting better a few times now, that being your message, that, why not get better? How do you balance this thought? Kyle Okposo ended last season believing that there can be a carryover on how you finished last season into this year. But how do you balance that or guard against just saying we show up and we can just pick up where we left off in April?
The great question. The carryover has to be the experience. Positive experiences, negative experience, frustrating experiences, and I think those guys identify with what I mentioned earlier is what we left on the table. They're pissed off that there were nights I challenged them hard, that I believe this is a game that we should win. And we said that a lot all the way, the last half of the year before we even started winning. I'm big on, you have to be confident before you win. If your confidence just comes because you just started winning, I don't know how that really works in the long run. So I think our guys were really confident before we started winning hockey games. And they played with that intent and that intention. And so they've developed kind of that ownership and identified with, okay, there's a lot of work that goes into winning and a lot of details that need to be executed. And we gave up skill and experience a lot to teams in the last few years. And I mentioned to this group, and my message was, we just need to get better and better. And that was the message back there with our group. And when we get better, we can see that, and now it's we go into games, and I don't think we feel the outcome is going to be decided by skill. That team just has more skill than us. They're going to win. That was almost the mentality and mindset. So now it pisses you off because you're not going to lose the game because of skill. You're going to lose the game because of execution, because of details. And you mentioned Okposo. When you say that, that's leadership. I mean, that's a guy that's that's been in this league. We know, look at how long he's been in the league and look at how competitive he is. So he knows that. I think that message has gone to the players. So, if we're going to carry something over from last year, I don't think it's the good and the winning. I think it's the taste in your mouth of, we left some stuff on the table, and we need to go after that.
Of all the things that this team accomplished last year, that might be the biggest takeaway aside from individual performances?
That is accomplishment to me. Like I said, wins will follow. I like the winning is, I guess you can confuse, everybody looks at winning, and that's, and then you talk about success. And I think sometimes you confuse the two, or they sound the same. We're talking about success. And that's doing the right things, targeting the right things, from your preparation the right way to go get things, and then winning is the result. And I think this group has identified well with that, what it takes to be successful, which is every day, and you do it, and you're going to win more.
Don, Kevin got an extension yesterday, and he was obviously instrumental in you getting a chance to go behind an NHL bench. How has that relationship evolved from April of 2021 to now?
Yeah, it's grown, and it's grown really to the point where you go into coaching and you go into management. One thing you miss is being part of a team and teammates. You just miss it. It's just not there. And I would liken that growth to being teammates. I get that feeling just in our conversations. He's someone that I can go to and vent, and I have. I can't vent to you guys. So he's, it would be pretty interesting. It would be pretty interesting, I'm sure. Yeah, that would be a tough one if I said that, Paul, Mike, let's talk in confidence. That would just kill you not to write what I told you. No, but that's the relationship we have. I need somebody as a coach. I want Kevin involved as much as he wants to be involved with me. I just talked to him about practice. What were his takeaways? He gave me a couple thoughts. I give him our game plan going in, and he gives me his thoughts after. I don't want to say opinions, because we're trying to figure this out together, and we try different things. And if I'm wrong, I want somebody that's going to tell me that. I do what I do. I try to do with. There's always thought going into it, but it might be thought, it might be a bias, it might be going right direction. So I need somebody that can look out for me, and I have a trust in Kevin that he knows our coaching staff works, and I think that, my growth in relationship to him is the speed of information is incredible. My first 6 years, Mike, and I'm sorry to be long on this, but I was the general manager and the coach, and it was easy to get things done immediately. I obviously I lived it. And being the general manager and the coach, all those coaching and general manager decisions were made like that. Sometimes the two had, no, I won't go into that, but I feel that way now. It's the speed of what we can get to things to move on to the next thing is really, really important. And that's why I feel I need to have a great relationship with him, but it just works. He's a great person. He works hard, and he's an extremely experienced NHL, former player in mind.
When you look at what Owen Power was able to do at the end of last year, just how do you work with him as he goes into his first full pro season?
Yeah, much like the answer to Peterka and Quinn. I've tracked him for quite a while. He looked great again today. He looked today even, he coaches himself very well. He studies the game. He studies his position. He studies best players. So he's always finding ways to get better. Or add to his game. I think with him, much like we did at the end of last year, we wanna throw him in there without, we don't want him dipping his toe in the pool, just jump right in, and because he will self-correct, so we want him going hard, and so we'll watch him, and I'm sure he's going to have 90% of everything right on, and the 10% that's not. we'll be able to see, okay, this is the 10% we need to approach him with. I don't need to approach him with 100% of stuff. Let's see what he gets right and what his feel is. So we need to learn about him before we start inundating him with, stuff to consciously think about. And that's the process with all our guys. I don't want them thinking about us. It's our job to think about them.
What's your thought as you enter camp today now? 2 players. Is Casey Middlestad a wing or a center today? And is Dylan Cousins a wing or a center? What is your thought as you enter camp?
Well, I'll turn that back to you. Why are they one or the other? And that's just the way we think. And why would we convince ourselves that they're one or the other? We don't want to limit. That's limiting. I know it might seem like, well, you could argue it's not limiting because this guy's a better centerman. But for them to have that flexibility, because they can, both those players specifically now, shifted now specifically because they both have attributes that if you shift them to either position within a game or within a game, they're dangerous in different ways at center, and they're dangerous in different ways on the wing, and it's impressive, and they're growing in both. So that's pretty exciting. So I don't know what we'll do. When you have the line combinations for us, we have 5, 6, 12 lines in camp. So we have a lot of young guys, and I thought the rookies were really good in the prospect camp or the rookie tournament. I want to integrate some of the rookies with the guys that have been here. So that's preventing us from getting to lines. I think once we hit in October, you're going to see us move more toward line combinations as we prepare for that game, the opener, I should say. But now I want to integrate the organization in these guys with different people. So I'm not too concerned with line combinations yet, and in the process, I think Casey and Dylan are enjoying playing different positions, and we'll just keep moving along that and see what we see when day one opens. What injuries do we have? What our lineup looks like, and then we'll say, okay, we need this guy at center. And to note, one's a righty, one's a lefty there too. So.
How have you seen the experience that Rasmus Dahlin gained last season in a much more bigger role influence, build upon his confidence, and what do you see the next steps for Rasmus now that he has all that experience and then going into this is his 5th training camp?
Just, it's going to sound a boring answer, but just keep getting better. And much like I said about Owen, he's a guy that has a huge appetite for more. He's immersed in the moment and the next moment that he has control of in preparation. He doesn't get too far ahead of himself. We've known him to dwell on mistakes quite a bit, and we've kind of pushed him out of that. I think that's helped accelerate his development. But I know he went in the summer, and I said it to many people. I don't think I said it to this group, but even the success of defensemen in the NHL playoffs. I was, when we were talking as a staff, I said, I know that Dolls is watching the NHL playoffs, and it pisses him off. And he's got such a high personal standard that I know he demands more. So I know that he's taking initiative over the summer to make himself a better hockey player based on what he sees and based on the experience he's gained. So again, I'm going to just let him go and watch and help him wherever I can. But he's a better player than he was when he left us on our last game, April 29th. There is no doubt about it.
Is there an advantage to having him and Owen in the same practice group?
No, it just happened that way, Jordan. Yeah, we had so many different things. We absolutely thought about, some of the young guys mixing with more experienced guys, but I don't think we worried about Owen and Dolls in that regard.
What are some of the important attributes to look for in the next team captain, and how do you view your player leadership within the group?
We have great leadership. I'll just point out our 3, older. I think they're our 3 oldest guys is Gergensons, Okposo, and Craig Anderson, and they do a tremendous job. They have that presence. There's a presence there, and they're in it, obviously as competitors, but they really have a deep care for helping some other guy achieve more. They don't fear that, oh, this guy could replace me, which is very uncommon. You know, whether that's a conscious thought or a subconscious thought. Sometimes it's hard for the older players to really, really help a guy that might replace him or take some ice time away from him. The three guys are you know, they love it. They you know, we've tried to empower them to that end, and they've embraced it, and they love it. So, you know, I think Kevin mentioned, you know, we've discussed captaincy a lot over the summer and extensively, I should say, and there's a lot of guys that we know have the capability of either being or becoming a captain at this level. And that was one of the biggest things when we did a real deep dive and asked ourselves questions and even talked to others, that we have a lot of guys in that room that are becoming leaders and better leaders every day. You know, we want to make sure we clear the way that happens, that process keeps happening. Those players that maybe, you know, that not who are necessarily just who our captain is, but a whole next group of guys are coming. Because let's face it, we've had Gergensons and Okposo last year. We talked about them being the captains, and then we had some, you know, we had to add through injuries the A to guys. But those are the two guys that obviously are within our captain group this year. And the next group of guys is a big number of guys. So we want to make sure that keeps moving.
Do you feel there's a variety in the types of leaders, like the types of leadership that
Yep.
is emerging with different guys?
Yeah, there is different personalities and different, you know, and you have leaders that, you know, you can have an extreme leader that's, you know, not necessarily captain material. Like captain material, you got to be very comfortable getting in a guy's face, calling guys out. You know, that's a big part of captaincy too, and that's a burden. That's a lot. So, you know, and again, you know, when you think of young guys, I think that sometimes that's a concern for any organization when you're pointing a young guy. I think that's probably the toughest part of a young guy. He's in a position where he's got to call out his teammates, and you know, he might be 8-10 years younger than a guy, and I'd be saying that in general in sports. And so those are so many different components you look at when you think about captaincy.
How much?
It's different than leadership, basically.
Kevin was saying that Rasmus has a quiet swagger to him. I guess how do you see that swagger?
Swagger to me is a confidence with a willingness to earn it and re-earn it. You know, it's when you're cocky and you're, you know, you don't maybe you don't feel you have to earn it. You've earned it already. You know, Rasmus is willing to earn it. So when he chirps even a teammate in practice, he'll go harder than that. He knows he'll challenge the guy in practice and call him out, and then he'll hop in line and go one-on-one against him and say, I'll show you what I'm talking about. You're not going hard enough, and you're not competing hard enough. So he'll back up what he says. So he's in my mind, you've earned that swagger. That's a good, healthy swagger. So
Knowing how much it took Tage under your wing to push him, how, I'm not sure if pride is the right word, but the fact that he is now at the point where he gets to sign that kind of a contract, and how do you see, knowing his mentality, how do you see him not settle after being rewarded with such a
yeah, he'll never settle on that. He wants to prove more, and you know, he wants to prove it to himself, which is the best thing. He wants to play for our fans, for our team, for his coaches, his teammates, but that burn inside of him, he's just quiet, and you guys have learned and seen him endure quietly and have to, you know, just try to be under the radar when you couldn't be under the radar, to stay focused on, you know, back to our theme, getting better. So yeah, it was really, I'm really excited for him. I am not worried about him. He wants more. I've told the story that when he scored his 30th, I leaned over on the bench and said, you know, I know you're thinking like me. This is a great reward, but let's go get 31 and more. And that's it. That's the way he processes things.
Kevin talked about, you know, he did a very deep dive, and you're talking to you and doctors and trainers and sports performance, everybody, to try to get a handle on how can you reduce the injuries injuries. So from what you've heard in all those discussions, is there anything you can do, maybe practice-wise and that type of thing, as you've listened and talked and everything, that maybe can help reduce the number of injuries that you guys have had?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind, Paul, and again, these are things that when you do this, you're going to look at the science of it, which we do. We don't feel that there's a lot of information in the science of heart rate tracking through the guys that is positive. I don't think that it would be an issue at all. We did have a lot of man games missed last year. I know we were top of the league at some point late, and that really helped us getting healthy late in the year. I don't know where we finished up in that regard, but when you're a younger organization, the lack of experience forces you to compete harder. You're less efficient. So you're competing harder, you're exhausting yourself more, and it's compounding. So I'm not nervous and feel we have had a problem with that, Paul. I think that is a sign of what fit, if you look at our whole organization. We're a young team growing, and we are trying to overachieve, which means the wear and tear factor is way harder on us than teams that are top 10 in the league. They can walk in a building and they actually try to play efficient as an objective. We're feeling that we can win the game this way. When you're, where we were at as a young, experienced team, you're flying here, flying over there, maybe because you don't have quite the calm and experience yet, and compound that, you're gonna run your risk of more injuries. It just, in my mind, I've seen it, and I've gone through it with teams in the past. So I think that was a bit of the component. But again, this is something that's no indicator that it's going to resolve this year. I think what Kevin has done is continually progress this organization in depth. I feel we have greater depth. We've built things where we know the style we want to play. We've brought players in that fit that even stronger. We've grown players within that have fit that stronger. So we are improving our efficiency from that standpoint, which I think is going to be tied to, time will tell. But a lot of things we do in that regard are thinking of hypotheticals. But I feel we're in a really good place, Paul. And with that, I will mention, because Kevin did mention to me, when he spoke of injuries, on his mind was the rookie camp. But we do have Malone, Picard, and Nadeau who are out right now in this camp. So Malone, Picard, and Nadeau.
How long from Malone?
We don't know. Malone is on the ice skating with Mike Ansell, working his way back to practice now in full contact.
Josh Bloom.
I don't have any reports on details, Paul. So.
I think Kevin knows.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, he's not on my list.
Is there a timetable for the tape?
I don't know. Sorry.
We got the guys in the hall, so
Okay.
you guys are going to
Okay.
see a lot of Donnie.
Thank you, guys.